Hello and welcome to the Ivy League Sisters podcast, where you're invited into the world of high-achieving women who earned that coveted Ivy League degree and now are here to get real and honest about the pressures and expectations that come with claiming this achievement. I'm Lauren Baluchian, and I'm the founder of Ivy League Sisters, a mentorship community where intellectually curious and slightly rebellious women band together to support each other through the personal and professional seasons of life. In this podcast, we peel back the layers of perfection to reveal the authentic, often messy, and always inspiring stories of women who have been where you are. So whether you're an Ivy League graduate, a high achiever in any field, or simply someone striving to live a more authentic life, the Ivy League Sisters podcast is a place where you can realize you're not alone. And if you're new here, like and follow this podcast so you don't miss out on the latest episodes. I hope you enjoy the conversations. Oh my gosh. I am so excited to.
Lauren, I'm so happy to see you.
I know. We got to touch briefly yesterday, but to actually see one another, we don't get this that often.
I know. Your background looks cozy.
Yeah, you like it?
I like it a lot.
You too can have an Ivy League Sisters background.
I know. I have to update mine.
All right. There are so many places that we can go, and I have some ideas in mind. So hopefully we just lean into the magic of what comes into our path. But the first thing I wanted to start with,
Yes.
I was just thinking back to, I feel like you're the ultimate networker, and it's a gift. Like, it's a gift that I don't have. And when I see someone who has it, that looks, maybe it's not effortless, maybe it is for you, but you do it really well. And you're just a bridge to people. And that's so important in this world of like disconnection and everyone in their own little bubbles, to have someone like you who's like leaning in and reaching out, extending that, that olive branch is special. We wouldn't be here today had you not done that.
Well, thank you. I do think we need more of it.
Yeah. Where I wanted to start today is the fact that we both went to Dartmouth. We're both women of Dartmouth, although we're not wearing really any green. And what's wild is our moms would not have been able to go there, right?
Because of their gender.
Yes.
Because of their gender.
So that's just pretty mind-blowing, because when we think like this stuff is way in our rear view, or the work is done, or everything's equal now, or whatever that, narrative is, when we pause and we think about that for just a second, it was like not till 1972 that, as an Ivy, Dartmouth didn't open their doors, and many of the others were right around that same time as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were the last Ivy to admit women. Like you said, 1972, the first woman didn't graduate from Dartmouth until 1976. When my mom graduated from law school, she was one of 3 women in her law school class. When I went to business school in 2019, none of the top 10 business schools in the country had hit gender parity.
Wow.
Yeah. My class is around 35%. Yeah.
So
50 years later.
Yeah. Well, I knew this conversation was coming up for us. I wanted to get my facts straight, so no one needed to fact check me after they hear this. And there were some startling numbers that I want to call out, and then have that be our guide to where this conversation leads. Because I know the work that you do is so, well, you say it. What do you do?
I'm a financial advisor. Most of my clients are women. Most of my team are other women in finance. And we create financial plans and investment strategies for women to accelerate wealth.
Wealth management, which just sounds so desirous and so like luxurious, indulgent. So here's some
And
stats.
wealth is a word that oftentimes denotes finance, but it is so critically important to the ethos of our team to define wealth in terms of health, time. What are you investing your energies in, your passion in, your love in? That's all wealth. We're just credentialed on the finance side.
That's such a good call out. And it's an important one because I think, yeah, we immediately do link that word and wrap it up in a dollar sign. And it's not, it's so much more than that.
It's so much more than that. Everyone deserves a life of abundance and a life of wealth. And there are many, many types of riches. Finance is only one of them.
Yeah. All right. So let's,
Right, Lauren, I'm ready for your stats.
okay. So here's some stats. First, the Equal Credit Opportunity Act passed in 1974, which says that women in the US were finally granted the right to open a bank account or a checking account without a male's permission.
74.
And then this one really blew my mind. This is a new one I hadn't heard. It was 1988. So I was 4 years old. I don't know how old were you born?
Yeah.
You were 2. Okay. The Women's Business Ownership Act was signed into law by President Reagan, allowing women to get business loans without a male co-signer. I mean, think about that for just a moment here. I would not then, if I, would be able to have my business. How many other small, I mean, it makes me think when we wonder why women are still trying to find their footing as entrepreneurs, as business owners, and it feels sometimes like can't get ahead, can't figure it out. So many starts and stops. Like we haven't been doing, it's not like we've been doing this for generations.
No, the runway is short. And I think there's an intergenerational DNA of lack of confidence. There's a scarcity of track record, a paucity of just institutional knowledge from female generation to female generation to female generation. We passed down other wonderful skills and traits and characteristics, but being an operator, being a business owner, flexing that muscle.
It's so true. It's
not what our grandmas were talking to our moms about.
When we don't have someone ahead of us that we can role model and look up to, or have a mentor that really feels like this person has blazed that trail, or they've been down this path before, it's scary, even though we're allowed to, even though we have the right to. It's like, it's such a cop-out when I hear people be like, well, it's all equal now. If anything, you guys get an advantage, women get an advantage because everyone's trying to make up for it. And it's like, it goes deeper than that.
Oh, it's incredibly deep. It's incredibly deep. And the knowledge transfer, even now, woman to woman, is oftentimes not about the stock market, inflation, the economy, running a business. We hang out and we talk about our kids.
Yeah.
Talk about our families.
Yeah, no, it definitely plays a factor and it has an impact. It makes me remind me of like when I graduated from college and was looking to get that first job, and I wanted to go into TV news broadcasting. And they sent me.
Oh, you would be so great at that.
I had no journalism experience. I was just like, this sounds like a fun job. And this sounds like I get to talk to people and interview people. And I remember being told to go to the Dartmouth like alumni directory and start phoning just a list, like cold calling essentially, which was virtually white males, that had graduated a couple generations before me. And I just remember the conversations being so transactional and just like going through the motions, but it wasn't like, hey, like, why do you want to do this? And really that like passion and that interest and that connection. And it was like, they always ended with like, good luck, kid. Like, you're going to do great.
And you
What?
had just graduated from an Ivy League school with an education worth six figures
Yeah.
on
Okay. This is
paper.
another stat for you.
Yeah,
So the gender pay gap, women overall make 84 cents for every dollar men.
84. Last I checked, it was 82. So I'm glad we're inching our way up.
But this is going to be a tough one for all of us Ivy League grads. Higher education levels make the gender gap wider. So the higher you up are in education, the bigger the disparity is. And so the average pay to a man's dollar for a woman with at least a bachelor's degree is 79 cents.
Wow.
Yeah. I'll put all
Wow.
these statistics in the like the show notes so if anyone wants to see where they all came from. But isn't that a little, I mean, that actually makes more sense because I feel a lot of women I talk to in Ivy League sisters or in the community are like, I'm not living up to my potential, or I thought earning this degree was going to pave a way of abundance, financial abundance. And why is
Hmm.
that not,
Hmm.
happening the way I expected it to?
And there's so many conflating factors. Women are still the dominant caregivers, both caretaking children, caretaking parents. When your parents start to get a little older, most aging adults need emotional, physical, financial support. Typically, it's the adult daughters who shoulder that burden. We know that geriatric patients who have adult daughters outlive geriatric patients who don't have adult daughters because it is the adult daughter who logs into the electronic health medical record to understand what's going on, understand what needs to happen, and then execute next steps.
Wow. I mean, it does make sense, but it's also startling when you put it in that context.
Yeah,
And I keep
yeah.
hearing about the sandwich generation, those women that are there. I'm like inching there. I'm not quite there yet, but I really feel for that. Like right in the middle, kids are now in their teens and 20s, and then their parents are in their 80s. And there's that squeeze of having to like literally take care, feeling that pressure to take care of both.
Yeah, and caretaking is not calculated in economic GDP, so it's not considered productive.
Okay, I got another stat for you. We didn't rehearse this, but guess what? This is going to blow your mind. If American women earned minimum wage for the unpaid work they do around the house and caring for relatives, they'd have made 1.5 trillion with a T in 2019.
Wow.
I'm saying it again. If American women earned minimum wage for the unpaid work they did around the house and caring for relatives, they'd have made collectively 1.5 trillion in 2019.
And that's minimum wage, no bonus. That's and that's in the US?
This is for the US. Yeah.
Whoa.
So to your point,
Whoa.
when we think about where we're picking up the slack and we're doing the extra hours, the overtime in the home, I think they said, I don't have the stat right here, but it's about for the extra 4 hours that a woman does in the home, a man does on average like 2.5. So we got some work to do. We
There's
got
a
some work to do, some changing to do. So I actually want to shift us then into you sharing like,
thank you
well,
for the
first of all,
stats. Those
yeah.
are
So let's just keep those in the background as we're talking. But okay, when I think of Helena, I do think of the word desirous.
mm,
And I wanted us to just take a moment to like feel into that feeling of desirous and have you bring it into the lens of what you desire for women in the work you do?
Money is currency. Money gives you options. Money gives you freedom. We don't use the word retirement um, at our office. I think that that word is
Needs
sort
to
of
be retired. It
yeah,
needs
it's
to be
like
retired.
it needs to be retired. It's not in vogue anymore. The way we reframe retirement is financial independence qualitatively. When do we stop trading our time for somebody else's dollars? I see desire in being able to design the life you want and then ultimately live it as a function of being human in 2024.
Right.
Everyone should be allowed that opportunity, that privilege if they make certain decisions.
Okay, so what's our some of the, because right now this sounds like so lofty. It's like what we
It's
all
so
want.
it's
But what, how does it become attainable?
yeah, I one, the confidence, right? You have to believe that you're capable of starting a business, of switching over to a different law firm, of leaving
Mm.
the hospital and going into private practice, of getting married, of having a child, like of making these really tough life decisions that can be really scary. And then just figuring out like how do I make the best decision possible for myself?
Wait, Helen, thank you so much for saying those things and naming them, because those are so many times the things that I see women get stuck on, which is like staying in the job that they literally like feel they're getting taken advantage of or overworked or not asking for what they need, or the fear of diving into a marriage or a relationship, or the fear of choosing to have children and starting a family and maybe it doesn't look the way they expected it to. Like all of those things I see as such barriers for so many women from living that abundant, desirous life. It's
I know,
fear.
and the financial component of it, I don't want to diminish it, but in many ways, that's the easy part. That's just math. It's like it's very logical. If you have X amount of money and we spend Y amount of money, that will last for this many years. And that's all we're solving for.
Yeah.
Of course, there are strategies to invest and grow and understand tax, but that's all micro. Like that's our job. That we're we're great at that. What what we want to see more of is people engaging in that introspection. What are my values? What do I want to build? And not just thinking, oh, if I put it on the board and I manifest it, it'll happen. It's like, what steps do I need to take in order for this to become a reality?
Mm-hmm. A game plan.
Yeah, I mean,
Everyone needs a solid game plan, like something that's, it's
it's a
not just
plan.
words, it's actually connected to the why, right? To the
It's
deep desire.
exactly. And I think communities like Ivy League Sisters is the how. Because when you're in community with other women thinking through equally scary, tough, exciting decisions, that's a collective flame in our bellies.
Ooh, yes.
And my hope is that that flame enables better decisions faster. Because there's nothing worse than having the same conversation today that we had in 2023. And, hearing the excuses as to why something didn't happen.
Right. Yeah. There's so much that when we are as women in particular, it's like how we are hardwired at a very primal level to seek connection, safety, love, and those, when we like feed those deep, deep, deep core instincts of us, I feel like that's actually when women are more willing to take risks or have that up leveled of confidence, realize they're not alone. It's like, because for whatever reason, our society's now created a infrastructure where the white fences, the fences that keep us all divided, keep us in our own
Mhm.
little caves and our own little spaces, and we're not as a village anymore.
No.
And then the institutional knowledge, which you were speaking of, is not also being passed down in the same ways. Like, I've loved how you've been like, more women just need to be open about what they make, how they're negotiating their salary. Like, let's not keep it in a black box.
No, but that transparency is so critical. It's just data. It's just
Just the number.
numbers. I have another desirous ask around data transparency. My my hope is for that type of transparency and candor to be reflected in our healthcare system as well. Because I see so frequently women don't talk about these things, fertility, childbirth, postpartum, and we're seeing it more and more in the menopause chapter.
Mm-hmm.
And oh my gosh, that can be a really, really isolating time because some of those symptoms are very, they're challenging to manage, and um a lot of times health insurance, Medicare doesn't cover some of the more complementary and alternative holistic treatments that can certainly placate some of the rougher side effects. And I don't think that holding on to what your body's going through is of service to future generations. I think we need to speak more broadly about it. There needs to be more transparency around clinical best practices, alternative best practices, ideally insurance reimbursement for things that work. I read last night that our National Institute on Health, the NIH, has a budget of $45 billion, and they spend about 4.6 billion on women's health. So 10%, 10% on women's health. And it wasn't, I heard this yesterday, I assume it's true. It wasn't until 1993 that it was mandated for clinical trials to include women.
Oh my gosh.
Obviously for trials that would affect men and women.
Right, right. But still, well,
93, 1993.
I
So
think,
I
well,
think that yeah, we're just getting started.
getting started on this work. I mean, another thing that's coming up as you were saying that is, when women are going through all these different transitions in life, the motherhood, these like rites of passage that we go through, um, then, menopause, perimenopause, our hormones are doing some crazy, wacky,
Crazy.
weird things. And we have so often, I think that's where like the whole expression, or even the month of a cycle, like your menstrual cycle, like a lot is happening in there. And it's been so easy for our culture and our media to just say, the woman's crazy, like, oh, she's
Hysteria, right? A
all the stereotypes.
hysterectomy. You know that
Exactly.
hysterectomy obviously is rem the removal of your uterus, and that's because they thought that removing your uterus would calm the hysteria.
Right. It's just insane. It's like,
That's
and so think about that. And I'm just going to encourage any women that are listening to this who are maybe not at perimenopause or menopause yet, but to get their hormones checked. It's on my to-do list, so I'm raising my hand. I haven't actually done it. But because so many women, finally the knowledge is being shared down, and they're like, if you have a snapshot of what your levels were, and they are always fluctuating, but you have like a baseline, when you get to that stage later, it gives you a leg up on the data, because let's be honest, how we feel impacts the choices we make, the
Mm-hmm.
decisions we do, and the life we like,
And how you're
the
showing
quality
up.
of our life. And if
Totally.
so much is a physiological to some degree thing, and
That
I've
you have
just
no
seen
control over, or sorry, that you're not actively controlling, but there might be ways to
to
help.
get that stuff
Yeah.
dialed back in. It makes me think of after a big night of drinking, like there's a drop in chemical things. I don't care what kind of mantras and mindfulness and self-care practices I try to put into a place when I feel that way. I want to give it the double fingers. Like it's not going to change. So I can only imagine when our body does that and we're like, whoa, I don't feel like myself anymore. I don't
Mm-hmm.
even feel like comfortable in my body. This something is happening.
Yep.
But thanks for bringing light to that, because it's
It's
huge.
so important.
And we are women are phenomenal at managing pain and pushing through it. I think it's like, look no further than the fact that childbirth, like what that entails. And and I just know that there are so many women that are in physical pain that are just deciding they need to live with that because they don't believe there's an alternative or there's another way. And partly maybe that's because there hasn't been research in it and we don't, or we haven't had the informational institutional knowledge to be sharing it
And I think
across.
another takeaway is that it's not the woman's fault. Oftentimes, the finger of blame is pointed like, oh, I should have done this differently. When we're just in the infancy of building out these infrastructures and communities of looking at the macro perspective of, well, of course you feel this way because your doctor doesn't know, isn't trained to screen for these symptoms, or this person is quick to discount this very real experience you're having, or the system is set up to only pay you 84 cents to the dollar for the work you do. So you have to work 16 more years
Mm,
to be made whole.
yeah. Wow. The other challenge is when we're trying to inspire women to use their voice and to push back and question things, like in the doctor's office, it's really hard. I've been there when I was had a doula. I was going a little bit more untraditional for my births, and there was no masking the eye roll of my doctor. Like he was clearly not pleased that I was gonna I had a birth plan and B an advocate for me in the room. And it's hard because you want to put your trust and faith in these
In the
experts
systems. Yeah.
in the systems. And I remember just feeling so like, when they said, oh, your levels are this and we need to induce you and like all this frantic, now, hurry, hurry, hurry. And your brain's just frozen. You're like, I don't want to risk, losing this baby because selfishly I wanted to have my perfect birth plan. But when you have someone who, like my doula in this case, who's just asking just questions. Is it really at risk? What's really
Mhm.
happening here? And even if you have to kind of get past the rough, like annoyance that they don't want to be questioned, but if you listen to the actual answers, they're like in this case, Lauren is safe, baby is safe. There's actually nothing urgent. We just need to be monitoring this. Like, okay, that's a different narrative than how you
Yeah,
just presented it all in the way.
totally.
So I guess where I'm going with that is thinking through, as women are questioning things to kind of remind themselves how people, their own little ways of saying things, like get past that, still ask the questions. I guess, you know
And
what it is? It's people pleasing. Like, I don't like to question the authority because deep down I want to be liked. I want to be pleasing of them. Right. So it's like,
and our intuitions, it's like they're there, they're still there. Maybe they're a little like crusty, but we have to we have to get back to the space of mother knows best.
I know it's so
You,
simple.
you're the mother. Like
Right.
intuitively, what feels good? What doesn't feel good? Even even in my son's preschool, he's only 4, and I've pushed back a couple times with the preschool teachers, and it was really unpleasant. But I'm with him significantly more than they are. I I think it's great that he builds toys really high and then destructs them, takes them down, and then rebuilds them even higher. And I can see how that would be distracting in a classroom, but that's great. Like that's what we do all day. We just build and rebuild even higher the next day. And I think that's what should be celebrated.
Yeah, it's how you look at it.
Which is not what they want to hear.
Oh my gosh. They're like, no, don't reframe it that way.
Like, no, no, he should have fewer toys so there it's easier to manage in the classroom.
Oh my gosh.
So
Good for you for speaking
don't
up
clip
and
his wings.
mm, yeah.
Nobody gets to do that. So I think it's it's a deeper, broader conversation around intuition too, around we are socialized to identify this person with this credentials, with this title, with these degrees, this training as the expert. We respect the expert. So we don't want to be challenging. We don't want to challenge.
Right. And then we doubt ourselves and then we
We
don't
doubt
flex that
ourselves.
muscle. We're not practicing. And intuition is a muscle that needs practice. I always tell women, we do not need more information.
Mm,
We are an information overload. What we really need is to make space and silence to hear that wisdom and to process it and to use it in a way that shows us our path forward. And again, it's scary when you don't see others modeling it and seeing it working out, but the more you hear women saying, hey, you know what, my doctor is saying this, I was feeling this wasn't still not right, and trusting. I've heard the stories enough that I'm like, women, we know our bodies and our kids even know our bodies. And to like, I have Leslie in our community. She talks a lot about her daughter who will be like intuitively tell her what her body needs. And a doctor, she might take her to the doctor and the doctor goes in this direction. The little girl's like, no, it's actually saying it's this. And Leslie's like, I just had to trust Hannah that she knew what she was doing. And sure enough, like it was, I can't remember what it was, but she got a second
um,
opinion and it was, little beings know
wow.
this stuff, but we are like, to your point, we get squeezed out of us. We get told, trust the experts, get more information, more data,
Be polite.
more research, more analysis.
And
Um,
I think it's for all of us, it's an opportunity to learn which which skills and behaviors and spaces and environments work for you to stay emotionally regulated.
it's so true. And it's unique to every individual.
Yeah, I think it's totally unique, but being around other people who are calm and confident and regulated and less reactive, I would say, and who know or who have honed the skills of active listening, that can certainly be helpful in those high friction situations at at the doctor's office or in the preschool classroom where you think, man, this is really isolating. It's me versus the experts.
Right.
How do I make a good decision on behalf of myself and my family?
And once again, why having like a community or like a group of people, that network you can fall back on, is when you have like a moment where you went into the preschool and you said that, or I had my moment where I was challenging the doctor. We often leave those. We might be proud of ourselves in the moment, or who knows what we're thinking in the moment. Then afterwards is when the tape those start to say, was I being too hard? Should I have said that? Like all of that static starts to come into play. But when we can go back and share it with someone and say, hey, this is what I did. And the people are like just reminding you, yes, thank you for speaking on behalf of all of us. Thank you for using your voice. Thank you for modeling that. Because now when I'm in my other situation of whatever that may be, you're going to pop in my mind. That's the chain effect.
That's the chain. Yep. Yeah. That's the transference that we're
Oh,
we're gonna pass down to our daughters and our granddaughters.
exactly. Yeah. Um, yeah, one thing I also wanted to touch on here, because I'm just so immensely grateful for you stepping into my life, is with my divorce and going through like a whole financial upheaval, where previous to connecting with you, or previous to my divorce, I felt like I had a really good handle on my finances, like investing, had some college funds set up, like doing all the right things, right? I had my Susie Orman going for me. And then the divorce happened and my world just got turned upside down, and all like everything just was like, no more time for saving, no more time for this, like just trying to live day to day. And I had a financial advisor for years, and like decades, I would say, even, a man who we met once a year. And it was just like so dry, so dry, just looking at the numbers. And it was basically, what did the market do? Because whatever the market did is how I did. There was not much more to it than that. And when I had the chance to work with you and your team, it shifted a lot, because I really felt like I had a team of women in my corner who were invested in my vision of what wealth meant to me and how it looks and it feels in all senses of it, not just the practical. And having that level of accountability and support on a more regular basis, like quarterly, to check in, was huge. And the other key thing that you did, and I'm so grateful for, is your patience, because I had years of not being in my divorce to not be able to really do anything in shifting. But your your active listening is what makes all the difference. Like, I'm still navigating this path and this process, but to feel like I've got my quote experts that know the finance stuff, and they have the interest to my investing in my bigger self as a human being, was so refreshing as a woman who's not usually wanting to get into all the financial stuff. And like, don't glaze me over with, I don't even know the words and the terminology, dividends and stock options and mutual funds. I'm like, leave it to you guys. I don't need to know how the sausage is made. You go do what you do best, but let's also find a connection at the personal level. So I wanted to thank you for that first. I don't know if I've ever verbalized
Oh,
like that. Yeah. And I just, any women that are listening to this, having them find their like someone they can trust without the shame, or right, all the like baggage that sometimes comes with looking into the purse, into the wallet, to decide like, what do I really want?
there's never a need for shame. We
So I know there's not, but it's so refreshing. There's not like, ooh, like it's just, it's for women, I think in particular, who might feel shame because they don't know their numbers, or they let their husbands do it all, or they weren't responsible with their money, they were
Yeah.
spending. Um, we all need someone that we can like be fully transparent with.
And we are Team Lauren 24/7. Whatever you want for yourself, we want that for you 100-fold.
And I feel it. It's not, those are not words. That's something that's much deeper. So
there's such power in transparency, in truth, in it. I recognize how scary it can be to reset the passwords and dust off the old retirement accounts and build a balance sheet together. Sometimes there are lingering student debts, credit card debt, liabilities, and there can be, feelings and shame around that. But again, there's no place for that at our table. It's more of a conversation around, let's map out these data points, throw everything on the wall, and then create a strategy to get to where you want to be.
Right. Right.
And that's it. It's
That alone though creates back to women wanting safety and security, like that's like innate desire of ours. Having that game plan and having that structure immediately creates that, because it's not just, throwing things and just hoping and praying and I'm going to manifest it. It's actually like there's a process, and that's
yeah.
like comes. And then when there's security in that way, this is another key thing I think for women, it actually opens the door to hear more of your intuition and your creativity.
Oh, sure, because you're not chasing all the accounts and rolling them over yourself and
Yeah.
calling the 800 numbers and figuring out, like, am I over invested in this one stock my dad told me to buy 25 years ago? Googling blue chip stock.
I don't think you were specifically talking about me, but
Oh,
actually I'm like
no, I
laughing
was.
because I'm like, oh, that one rings true.
And so, yeah, I think there's so many ways to make finance a little bit more bite-sized, frankly, to have more fun with it and to infuse some creativity into how we view wealth, how we follow these trajectories. So it's not just like market commentary every 12 to 18 months. Your values and your goals should be reflected in a financial plan that is bespoke to you.
Okay, I'm going to shift us into the lightning round questions
Yeah,
because we're just at
please.
time here.
It always
So
goes so fast.
I know. I like paused there because there was a part of me that wanted to go down another path, but it was going to open up part two. So we'll save it for another time to have us do one of these. But okay. So these are like quick, you don't have to give a full explanation of why or what, but feel free to take a moment to just see what comes to you. I encourage you not to edit your response. First one is imposter syndrome, people pleasing, and perfectionism. Which one is the biggest thorn in your rose bush?
Imposter syndrome.
Okay. Next one is what's a lie you tell yourself?
That's good. Probably how much coffee I consume every day. It's like 2 or 3 times what I think it is.
Yeah. Okay. And then one last question is like, what is something that feels a little bit edgy to you in your life that you feel willing to share more publicly today?
Motherhood.
Can you say a touch more on that? What's feeling really edgy?
Oh, it's the best decision I've ever made. Seeing seeing the world and making decisions through the aperture of little tiny humans who are dependent on me to make really good decisions is so edgy. Like I've never done anything
Amazing.
edgier than having children.
Yes. I love you dearly.
I love you
Thank you
so much.
for doing this and sharing your perspective. Like, oh my gosh, so much
There's so
rich.
much work to do.
There's a lot.
We need everyone. We need everyone on
We
board.
need everyone, right?
We
There's
need everyone.
we need the force, we need the power, we need the voices, we need the collective, and to talk about it and to the transparency, truth.
Lauren, these are mountains that have to be moved.
Yeah, I
You
know.
know, it's like, it's not just like a 45-minute Zoom session to like meet and greet and
No, it's
connect.
not. It's not one law that's going to change
It's
it. It's
not,
not one generation that's going to change it. It's not one race that's going to change it or religion. It's like so much bigger. And it's not one gender.
no,
It's
absolutely not. Oh, there's such a gravity, you know? It's
pretend, especially probably in like work settings, but it's a real thing that's happening. It's like we're
oh,
ignoring the elephant in the
it's
room.
huge. And that's what this OB was saying yesterday. She said work the workforce and work environment has to accommodate this, or else we lose that woman in the workforce who has such deep institutional knowledge, the grandmother effect, the like just knows how to get things done, is the peacekeeper. Oh, so
Oh, wow.
interesting.
That is really interesting.
I
All
love
right.
you. Thank you for inviting me to do this.
Yes, this is so fun. As always, we've done a few of these and it's always just, I
So
learned something
fun.
from. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. If you'd like to be in contact with our community, you can find us on Instagram and LinkedIn at Ivy League Sisters, or visit our website at ivyleaguesisters.com. And if you found this conversation valuable, I invite you to share it with another woman, another friend, another loved one, because it's through our sharing that we inspire one another and deepen our connections. Until next time, remember, you're not alone. We are in this crazy thing called life together.